So gentrification for Black people is yet again another source of another tool of racism.
In Mississippi, because of our legacy of institutionalized racism, sort of born of slavery and born Jim Crow, and that we're still getting over, post the 1960s civil rights movement, we need to do that retooling.
Gentrification is a new term. Before there was gentrification, there was urban renewal. And of course, we thought of it as what we called Negro removal. And the same can be said for gentrification. For once a neighborhood has been improved, it becomes a place where we're not welcomed.
So my definition of gentrification is when you take a poor area, poor neighborhood, more specifically in the city, and it becomes more wealthier based off the people that are moving in.
I guess my layperson's understanding of the term gentrification is the displacement of, I would say, low wealth or maybe low power people in communities by people moving into a neighborhood and investing money and sort of changing the power structure as well as what the community and the culture of that neighborhood looks like.
My definition of gentrification would be a wealthier group of people renovating an area full of poverty.
I have unfortunately seen gentrification in Jackson, places like Fondren, also some buildings around downtown have been gentrified where they were formerly industrial buildings, now turned into lofts.
So me being in Chicago, I stay in a neighborhood called Hyde Park, and Hyde Park in the early 90s wasn't really the best neighborhood. There was it wasn't too much shooting, but there was more Black people there. And not too far from my house, there's this really profound university, the University of Chicago. And they started to expand their campus, which brought more students from all over the country of different races to come into that neighborhood. And more businesses started to come because of the university's wealthy aspect of them expanding.
Before the Nissan company was built, they gave an opportunity to a lot of people that lived in Canton, Mississippi, opportunity to be bought out. And after building Nissan, it brought a lot of jobs to the metropolitan area.
Coming here from St. Louis, Missouri, I had high expectations for Jackson, Mississippi. I expected tall buildings and a nice, beautiful downtown, but instead I discovered that there was nothing but poverty and potholes. Staying in Jackson for the past 3 years, I noticed that the main attraction was Jackson State University, and I feel as though if it wasn't for Jackson State University, Jackson, Mississippi would have gone downhill.
Coming from Chicago, when I came to Jackson, it was, to be honest, I really didn't know what to expect. I honestly felt like, even though it is the capital of Mississippi, I wasn't expecting it to look any like Chicago, given that Chicago is a really big city. But I was expecting for it to be pretty much nice, not too much rundown houses or rundown businesses. I was expecting everything to be kind of close quarters, meaning everywhere you go, it's kind of like a really big neighborhood. But once I got down here, that wasn't really the case, based off where the school is located. Now, when you venture out of Jackson, going north of Jackson, then the neighborhood obviously changes. But yeah, when I first came down here, I was expecting a little bit more of a bigger city because it is the capital of Mississippi. I've learned that during the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, how the city of Jackson was a really thriving city. I've seen different videos and different pictures on how the city was really nice, and everybody, you know, there was racism here, but businesses were thriving and stuff like that. Schools like Jim Hill, Provine weren't always black schools; they were white schools at one point in time. But seeing how everything changed and how whites moved out the city and how they went to a more different area and stuff like that, a more different area, they ended up leaving the city in a way where it had no help.
I don't agree with the idea of gentrification, but seeing as how there's a high crime rate in the Jackson area, I think that they would really benefit off of it.
So I don't necessarily have a problem with gentrification. I honestly feel like with gentrification, it's not so much, we kind of view it as white people moving into a black neighborhood or whatever, but it's based off of how the neighborhood changes from what it was before.
Overall, gentrification is not a bad idea because it could be done by wealthy whites or wealthy blacks.
I think what we see more of, what I have observed more of, is that there are many more sort of segregated neighborhoods, white in a few places in mostly northeast and sort of east of Jackson, and a majority of sort of west and south Jackson. And there are very few places where black and white Jacksonians are mixing. There are a few, and I would also say, and particularly the lower wealth communities of west and south Jackson, one of the main problems is not gentrification, it's the lack of sort of any sort of investment at all, and sort of just ignoring those communities, and it's that's not healthy. Gentrification in an exploitative way is not healthy, and complete neglect, which is what I really see a lot of, is, from my perspective, also incredibly.
That Jackson might have done a poor job of trying to make sure that they were able to consistently get the finances that they needed to make sure that the neighborhoods, like the neighborhoods around Jackson State, don't fall down and fall into shambles.
Because Marshall's Music and Bookstore was founded on Fair Street and has always been on Fair Street, we've always been committed to our community. We provide books, but we also provide a gathering place.
There was an effort in this neighborhood that we're still in 50 plus years ago to create safe spaces for children and families. And so by 1968, Operation Shoestring had been planned, informed, and incorporated. So our roots are back a few years earlier in the civil rights movement, and definitely informed by the time we were, officially, legally created in '68 by the sort of ethos and strategies of the civil rights movement to build a world that really reflected a lot of the ideals of the civil rights movement, and that aligned with most of our kind of faith traditions, whether Christian, Jewish, or sort of a place where human dignity was central, and you could see that in the communities of which we live. Despite the fact that our wealth is sort of built on racialized oppression, built on slavery. So white and black have enough brains, enough resources to figure out how we can retool, to use your term, not just our communities, but perhaps our economic models in a way that are more equitable,